Well, good morning. I'm Jeff Coleman.
And I'm Debra Pinkerton. Welcome to Morning Light.
In just a minute, our Morning Light panel will tackle the topic of sports betting.
But first, here's a preview of what's coming up later in the show. We first told you about Jubilee Ministries in January. Jubilee ministers to the needs of inmates through worship services, Bible studies, and discipleship classes. We will talk to the chief program officer. Plus, we will share details on how you can support the ministry.
One of your favorite places to shop, I hear.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, when the 2025 NCAA champions were crowned in San Antonio this week, the stunning comeback for the Florida Gators was partly overshadowed by an eye-popping $3.1 billion in betting on the men's and women's tournaments. Sports betting is now legal in over 40 states, including Pennsylvania. March Madness is the biggest betting event of the year, Debra, outpacing the Super Bowl.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
But still, I cannot believe people bet on these things.
Well, it's not secretive anymore. It is secretive. It's no longer any shame associated with it, and all the stigmas are off.
Yeah, it's a game. Just
Yeah.
enjoy the game. Root for your team. Well, in the weeks leading up to the championship game, league officials sounded the alarm about the rise of harassment and abuse from fans who've lost bets. According to an NCAA study, a single student athlete received more than 1,400 abusive messages during a 2-week period.
That's astonishing.
Yeah, I
for an
can't
athlete,
believe
a
that.
student athlete.
Sad, very sad. So if sports betting can lead to gambling addiction, especially among Gen Z, and with mental health issues like depression and suicide on the rise, when will lawmakers say enough is enough?
I don't hear too many people saying that sports betting is a healthy addition to sports.
Yeah,
but the political will to stop it just is not there, and I suspect it might be because there's some money involved. And in 1991, after a string of college point-shaving scandals, the NCAA executive director Dick Schultz declared, gambling and intercollegiate sports don't mix. But who's been listening? Well, the league says betting on college sports threatens students' well-being and the integrity of college sports. That's a quote. Fans and a majority of state legislatures just don't agree. If sports betting is killing the spirit and mission of college sports and plunging a generation into debt and depression, when and how can you stop it? We'll take this big question to the Morning Light panel this morning. And happy Friday to you all. Sorry to give you a heavy topic on a Friday, but it really felt appropriate because so many people are talking about sports betting. It's almost synonymous with the game now. When you talk about your favorite sports teams or your players, you really are thinking about the money, which is a strange thing, especially college. Can you take us, Daniel, into your peer group and what has changed? I know, 2018, you have this major Supreme Court decision which takes sports betting out of Vegas and puts it to the states. The states then have this remarkable transformation where every state now becomes this powerhouse online betting experience. What's happening in your generation that is now growing up with collegiate sports and
it's really just the next iteration of the armchair quarterback. Like, people would always love to just sit back and watch a game and go, oh, I know what's going to happen. I know this, I know that. And now they feel like it isn't gambling because they know what's going to happen. And so that's why it's been such a rise.
That to me.
Well, so a lot of the things could be like, do you think this guy's going to make over or under 13.5 points this game?
Okay.
And they go, well, I know this defense sucks, so he's easily going to make over that.
Right.
And it's become this, and it's been advertised this way as well, as long as you know ball, like if you know sports well enough,
right,
you're going to be able to make all this money, which it's really not, because Vegas knows how to set the line
and
right
you
where
never
they're
have to do a workout with the team. You never have
exactly.
to.
You just get to say, yeah, I know that guy's
Not
good enough.
admitted
Let me put $100 on him, and him all doing these things.
So, Bryan, you have been a clear opponent of expansion of gambling all through your time in the legislature, but this feels like it is a machine that is almost unstoppable, that nobody believes a legislature could ever roll back the clock and go back to a time when sports didn't have this major addition or culture-changing event, which was the addition of sports. What happened, and how powerful is the gambling lobby?
Well, I think the first piece was that Supreme Court case that you mentioned. It really kind of forced everybody into feeling like it had to be addressed, because if it wasn't addressed in a legal manner, then it would occur anyway and it would be unregulated.
Illegally. Okay.
And so that was the first piece. The second piece, and one of the things I think we could do some more work on, is really protecting the athletes and ensuring that they don't receive harassment like you just described in the opening, because I think it's awful.
Right.
Because when you interject money into any part of your life, and then sometimes we all know that trouble addicts struggle with gaming and lose money. That's just another layer of stress. That's why they lash out at the athletes, maybe cause issues at home.
Right.
And it just disrupts the family unit, which is integral to really our society. And that's something that we're going to be left picking up the pieces from a policy perspective.
But nobody disagrees that really the online sports betting community relies on addicted gamblers, right? The model is built on this 3% of people who have a chronic addicted to gambling, and there are not the kinds of safeguards in place to prevent that from happening. How are they end running the kinds of regulations the state legislature put in place?
Well, if you look at things like the casino, it used to be you had to physically get in your car and you had to drive to the casino. You could put yourself on an exclusion list, for example, if you had a known gaming problem. But now, with all the online and the ease at which you can get it right on your telephone, you never have to leave your living room. You can sit in front of the TV, you can watch the game, and then you can gamble at the same time, and it makes it too easy. And there's also a degree of separation, I think. You know, you're not physically handing cash over at the counter in exchange for chips. You're simply pushing a button on your phone.
What you're describing almost sounds like the pornography industry, where you went from the brown paper bags and the shame of going to some building, someplace, parking around the back, and now you have it all so accessible that you never have to place the bet with a bookie, or, it's strange. Let's look at the NCAA ad that they ran all through March Madness, which talks about the problem you alluded to.
There's losing, but then there's being the loser. Game time comes with enough pressure. Way too often, people are betting on sports, losing, and taking it out on the athletes. Only a loser would harass college athletes after losing a bet. But it happens almost every day. Root for your team, get crazy when the buzzer sounds, but don't harass anyone because you lost a bet. It's time we draw the line and put an end to the abuse. Brought to you by the NCAA.
So it feels like, the NCAA is running ads. Their policy position is clear, but it is so big and so significant that they have not been able to do anything to curb the attraction. What do you think? You're with kids a lot. You're with high schoolers a lot. High schoolers are placing bets through bookies now. What is happening in the culture?
Well, we're talking about high school and up. But you look at some athletic events where we're dealing with parents that are yelling at refs and things like that at an elementary school soccer game. So the behavior that they're trying to curb doesn't just start there. It starts when they're young. You add money to it, and it just makes it more difficult. I think one of the things you said, you and Debra talked about in the opening, was shame. There is no shame to it. There are high school kids and probably middle school kids that are on their phone. They're putting a birth date in that isn't true. They have their parents' credit card, or they have their own credit card, and they're linking it to the account. Whereas years ago, you had to find a bookie. You had to go, and, you didn't have to have the money right up front. But if you lose, you better pay the man. Whereas now, you have to put that money there in order to bet. The other thing that's happening, though, also is, like when you're signing up, they're saying, you sign up here, I'll give you $10 in free bets. Whatever that looks like. And there's no protection for, what I coach, a lesser of those sports in swimming. And I think to some extent we're losing some of those smaller colleges that don't necessarily see some of this, but get the same attraction from, the negative, the negative publicity of people screaming and yelling in a negative way. Doesn't help.
Daniel, I need to ask you, so you're a Christian, you go to church, you're in church world and in the general public, so you mix in both worlds. But there doesn't seem to be a distinction. The message isn't getting through to Christian young people that there's anything wrong with sports betting as well, right? That doesn't seem to be cutting it, even though you see all of the scriptures about stewardship of your money, that your money isn't your own. It's very clear about what a wise person does with money and what an unwise person does. What do you think we're missing? Were we not talking about it in church? Or
honestly, I think it goes back to what I said at the very beginning is it doesn't feel like it's bad stewardship is kind of the message that a lot of people have because they think, oh, I know what's going to happen. I can put money there and I'm going to win.
Oh, interesting.
I think it's this
it's
new
a bit of a
wave
mind game.
where like you can say, poker, I know how to play the man. I'm never going to lose. It's not a game of risk. I think it's the same thing here where too many people think it's just as easy as I know what's going to happen. Let me parlay this, and this, and I'll be fine.
Interesting. So when you were looking at this issue, the counter message of all the widows of people who have lost husbands to suicide, to addiction, all the family breakup statistics. I mean, we know this is significantly impacting young people. How does that message not reach legislators who I know are very caring people, who are deeply involved in their communities and their churches? But why didn't that message get through? And why isn't there a rallying point to say, we've got to stop this? Suicide is a significant epidemic and sports betting is off the charts.
Well, I think it's twofold. It's part of what Daniel said, but then the other piece is this. If you look at gaming in general, and I use lottery statistics, the highest number of lottery tickets are actually bought in many of the poorest neighborhoods. So many people view this as their retirement plan, their opportunity to score big because they do know something or believe they know something. And at the end of the day, the state budget relies on that revenue. And so then many times our colleagues say, well, we'll just use some of that revenue to pay for the 1-800 numbers, the counseling, the social services. But I think that side of the ledger far outweighs any of the revenue that we could raise.
So do you have any hope in 30 seconds or so that the next chapter of gaming doesn't just double, triple, balloon, and this becomes the #1 cultural issue that's destroying families and hurting kids in high school and college? I mean, it feels like it's transforming everything.
Well, it is, and I think when you look, our state ranks in the top in the nation in terms of gaming revenues. And then, unfortunately, you look at our governor, and he's simply proposed more vices in order to solve holes. So
the so-called
that really,
sin tax.
Correct. You know, they want to legalize marijuana. They want to talk about another form of gaming, skill games, which are already in our neighborhoods and currently unregulated. So that causes a whole nother issue.
Well,
and that gives me grave concern. We've got to ensure that we ensure that minors aren't engaging in this, and we need to make sure that the appropriate safeguards and supports are put in place.
Tough topic, hard topic. We didn't resolve it today, but thanks for the light that you brought to a dark part of our society. Well, coming up on Morning Light, Jubilee Ministries serves those affected by incarceration by being ambassadors of life change through the gospel of Jesus. We'll talk to a man who now works for the ministry who can share his own life experience following transformation. You're watching Morning Light right here on Lighthouse TV.
We first told you about Jubilee Ministries in January. The goal of the ministry is to see lives changed by introducing Jesus to those behind bars. Joining us is Mark Bowen, Chief Program Officer for Jubilee Ministries. Mark, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Remind us about Jubilee Ministries.
Well, Jubilee Ministries exists to serve those affected by incarceration by being ambassadors of life change through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
And talk to us about your role.
I get to serve as our Chief Program Officer, so I provide leadership and supervision for our 3 ministry programs. That's prison chaplaincy, men's aftercare, and women's aftercare.
Talk to us about your journey. We were talking earlier. You faced some struggles growing up.
Yeah, well, I was raised in a home with some conservative, traditional values, and yet from a young age, I was deeply unsatisfied, deeply discontent. And in my mid-teens, got high for the first time, drunk for the first time, and found what I thought was what I needed. And so spent the next 10 years or so just living for myself in that way. Addiction, deception. I was a liar, a thief, and a drunk, and everything that comes along with that. So had a life that was marked by broken commitments, failed relationships, and at the darkest point of all that, finally coming to an end of myself, the Lord graciously pushed my arrogant behind into a program just like our aftercare program, a residential long-term Christian discipleship program. In that program, after a couple weeks, I wasn't sure if I wanted to join that cult. I didn't know anything about God or gospel, and these people seemed to really believe it. After several months, it was clear, though, that these men not only cared about me, but their lives had changed in a powerful way, and that they didn't just agree on some principles about how to live, that God himself was speaking to me through them, through his word that they were teaching me. God made it clear to me that he knew me completely, and yet he loved me completely. And so the only thing left to do was just surrender my life to him, receive his forgiveness, be freed from the power of sin, and live for him forever. And so by his grace, I've had the opportunity to stumble forward in that life since then. I've had the opportunity to go on working in this sort of ministry. Married, have children, and the Lord is graciously raising me up as a servant leader in his kingdom to serve the way that I was once served.
Oh my goodness, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you were in a very dark place. You can identify with the people behind bars who I'm sure are in dark places. How does the gospel really transform lives for them?
Well, the gospel transforms a life completely in every case that it takes hold. And so through the teaching, counseling, the Christ-centered biblical teaching and counseling we provide, we help people to see their need for the gospel. We help people to receive, again, the forgiveness and the freedom that Christ provides from the penalty and power of sin. And for those who do see their need, for those who receive it, everything changes forever. And so what that means is they're brought from death to life. They're brought out of darkness into light. They have a new heart to love God with, a renewed mind to make decisions that honor him. And so practically that looks like a whole new set of values and priorities. That looks like stewarding their resources, their time, their money in ways that honor God in accord with his truth and wisdom. That looks like becoming servant leaders in their relationships in home, in church, in community, again, in a way that honors him and shows that he's best.
And how are you seeing these lives change? I mean, are you seeing this happen a lot through your ministry?
We see it happen, I would say, a pretty biblical proportion. The truth is that Jesus himself, the perfect man, had the perfect ministry, and still most people didn't receive him. The way is hard and the gate is narrow that leads to life, and few will find it. And so we see many people respond very positively. We see a lot of people that aren't at the end of themselves yet, and so we still seek to minister to them, to love them, to compassionately speak the truth and love to them. But again, for those who the Spirit of God is working in, that see their need for Christ, to receive him, that process of change begins and will continue as God has promised.
And prayer is what's needed.
Amen. We need that. We need prayers for faithfulness in our ministry. It's very tempting to be distracted and to look to lesser things, to look to different authorities than the Bible, to redefine problems apart from the sin that God says is our ultimate problem, to redefine solutions apart from Christ and, again, his forgiveness and freedom that God says is what we need most. And so, we need help growing as faithful ambassadors of the gospel, and also trusting the Lord that he would bring fruit in his time as we're faithful to him.
Thank you for sharing your journey with us, Mark, and what you're doing, and we will continue to pray for your ministry.
Thank you.
And coming up next on Morning Light, Building Life Change, how you can support Jubilee Ministries through several upcoming fundraisers. We are back in 1 minute. Welcome back. You heard how Jubilee Ministries helps transform the lives of those behind bars. Well, the ministry also walks alongside their families. Joining me is Jubilee CEO Ryan Newswanger to tell us about some upcoming fundraisers. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So you offer scholarships for kids to go to camp. That's amazing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we do. We love to be able to provide that opportunity. And so we recognize that when someone is incarcerated, there's more people that are affected than just that person. And so what we do is to try to help the children who have a parent who's incarcerated. And so we provide camp scholarships so the child can go to a Christian camp for a week. And oftentimes children are, forced to act as grown-ups when the grown-up is not there. And so this gives them a chance to just be a child, have fun, but also hear about Christ and God and see his creation and come to, know him more.
I'm sure so many children are lost, especially when they have a mother or father who's behind bars.
Yeah, and we see, kind of the cycle of oftentimes when, parents are incarcerated and addicted, the children are not growing up in a great home, and so that cycle often will happen again. And so this is a way that we try to help in that and expose these children to who Christ is, who a heavenly Father is, how a heavenly Father can love them, forgive them, and that they can really have peace and joy and hope in him.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So we're going to talk about being a nonprofit. You do have ways to support your ministry, and one is through Jubilee Ministries, your stores. Tell us about them. I'm a fan, of course.
Yeah. Sure. We have 6 store locations, Lebanon County, Lancaster County, Berks County. And so we've had those for almost 50 years. A lot of our resources come from the stores, and so people donate very generously, and lots of people shop at those stores, and those funds go to, support this ministry of life change through the gospel. We also have an online store. If you're not in those areas, you can go to shopthejube.org, and you can shop online anywhere in the country.
So tell us about some of your other fundraising events.
Sure. We have a number of fundraising dinners that we host throughout the state. So upcoming, we have one in Selinsgrove in May. Then we have our major fundraiser in Lebanon in September. And then we have additional ones in Bedford and Wilkes-Barre in October. And so we do these throughout the state because our chaplains are serving throughout the state.
Yeah, all over. So
Yep.
you just need to go to your site to find out what's happening in
Yep,
your
our website, jub.org, would have all the details.
How does this support make a difference?
Well, it's awesome to see just a life be transformed. And just this week, I got a text from a pastor who was saying, "Hey, can you pray for Sean? He's going for credentialing this week to be a pastor." And Sean, we met in prison about 9 years ago. He came to Jubilee, went through our aftercare program, really grew in the Lord, very gifted man, and has been serving in this church now for several years, went through pastoral training through the denomination for the last 3 years, and now is just credentialed, and he's going to be the new associate pastor at that church. And so we get to see this transformation of who was and now who is, and that's all through Christ, and what Christ can do in someone's life is just remarkable to see. And even in that story, the pastor who sent me the text, he himself had been in prison about 30 years ago, came to know the Lord in prison through a chaplain, and went through our aftercare program about 25 years ago, now serving as pastor of that church, ministers to many of the men in our program today, and we believe and are hopeful that they will then be ambassadors for Christ in their families, their churches, their communities, and even around the world.
Oh my goodness, that just gives me goosebumps to know where this individual was. Well, both of these pastors now, where they were and how far they've come.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. I think it's the greatest privilege ever to work at Jubilee and meet these men and women at their lowest point many times, and not knowing what hope truly is, and to be able to expose them to that, and then to see them, accept it, to run to the Lord. And we know it's the Lord who does that work. It's the Lord who changes hearts. It's the Lord who renews minds. And in Him, you can just see amazing transformations that glorify Him.
Wow, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that journey with these two pastors. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And for a complete list of upcoming fundraisers or to sponsor a child for summer camp, check out jube.org. Stay with us. We're back right after the break. Welcome back. Coming up Monday on Morning Light, a third of the world has not yet heard the good news of Jesus. Global Disciples walks alongside the local church to mentor people to become missionaries. The North America president will join us. Plus, you will hear from a missionary who went through the program. And that's a look at what's coming up Monday on Morning Light. Now, Jeff, your closing thoughts, and have a great weekend.
You have a great weekend. Well, every sport has more than one inventor, but James Naismith, the Presbyterian pastor and YMCA athletic director, is the undisputed father of basketball. With 2 peach baskets and a soccer ball, he wrote out the rules for a clean sport that was physical, but not too rough, personal combat without personal contact. It was designed to be simple enough for missionaries to use without expensive equipment. Naismith said the aim of the game, basketball, is to develop the man and not make money or even draw a crowd. Basketball was designed as a tool to build character, to grow players into mature people. Here's how he put it. Let us all be able to lose gracefully and win courteously, to accept criticism as well as praise, to appreciate the attitude of the other fellow at all times. Good rules for a game and a great way to live. For Debra and the entire Morning Light team, I'm Jeff Coleman. Thanks for watching this week. Go check on your neighbors. We'll see you again Monday morning.